Christopher Lynch, welcome to the Bookaholic podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes, I'm glad to have you here. You've got one of my most favorite genres we'll be talking about today, mystery thrillers. I just love them. They keep you on your toes, and I love to read them late at night. The
Yeah,
later,
get
the better.
a little scare factor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
just love it. Well,
good.
you've written a book called Dark State, and it's one of those books where, your fiction has come to be real life. And you mentioned that about Tom Clancy, one of his books came to real life.
Right.
So to go back to Tom Clancy's, that book was called Debt of Honor.
Correct.
And I think you mentioned that planes flew into buildings, killing scores of people. And, imagine how he must have felt. And I think he was still living at that time. I'm supposing
He was.
that you're saying that. And so, you know, then you think about yourself. It happened to you too. So his was 911, and yours were the recent attacks, at least in the last past year, attack on substations. Tell
Correct.
me how that must have felt, just your feelings, and then we'll get into the book.
Well, one of the things is it's the attacks, the recent attacks people think about, but an attack similar to the one that I created in the book happened back in 2013 in California in a place called Metcalf. And
Mhm.
it was very organized, very deliberate, and they still have
Wow.
not caught those people. So
Right.
this is something that's gone unsolved for what now, 10 years. And
Yeah.
so this isn't new. And I'm honestly, when those planes hit the World Trade Centers, I actually, in my mind, because I had read Clancy's book, I honestly thought, I wonder what took so long. Because we're an
Mm.
open society, a lot of stuff is vulnerable. We have a lot of freedom in this country compared to, say, North Korea or China or Russia. And so people are free to move around, express ideas, learn things. So it didn't surprise me when those planes hit the World Trade Center, and it didn't surprise me when these substations got attacked. And I'm predicting that there's going to be even more attacks in the coming future. And so has the FBI and Department of Homeland Security. They've said that they are considering this very, very credible threats at this point for substations to be attacked.
Wow. Well, I will tell you, first of all, I was extremely shocked when the World Trade Center attack happened. I had just come back from a cruise, one that I was in a totally different business at that time. We owned a cruise travel management company. We had produced a successful theme cruise and came back, and I was writing thank you notes. And as I was writing thank you notes and watching the Today Show, all of a sudden planes hit the Twin Towers. It was horrible. And to
Right.
see that live on TV, it was absolutely horrible. And then to fast forward to last year or earlier this year, somebody who they still have not caught, whether it was one person or a group of people, hit a substation in North Carolina.
Mhm.
It's a few hours away from where I am here in North Carolina, but still it happened.
Mhm.
And so very shocking. And still, I was very shocked. And so it does not make me feel good that you're saying that you are not shocked.
So the reason I was not shocked about these substations is because of the fact that they are extremely vulnerable.
Mhm.
Most of them, almost all of them, have no security there as far as a
Right,
human being.
right.
They are the fences around them are nothing but a 6 foot high chain link fence in most cases, three strands of
Sure.
barbed wire, which when I was a kid, I would easily scale.
Oh,
Some of them have cameras, but a camera for the most part is an after the fact sort of tool that maybe they can get a license plate number, maybe they can identify somebody. these transformers can be taken out with simply a high-powered rifle
Yeah.
and ammunition that you can get online. And if that's the case, it doesn't take a lot of skill to be able to hit something about the size of a garage with a
Right.
high-powered rifle from a distance that a camera is not going to pick up on.
Right. Right.
So they're very vulnerable, and on top of being vulnerable, they are extremely long-term lead items. They're like about a year if
Okay.
you hit it in the right place. And they very difficult to move. They're super heavy. I mean, it's not something you run down to Home Depot and get. These
Right.
are
Right.
custom-made pieces of equipment.
Right.
And if I could back up and tell you where I came up with the idea, I was an
Yes.
industrial electrician for several decades at a major oil company. And I was in a meeting one time, and we were on a big project to build a whole new plant, and it required a lot of electrical equipment that was specialized equipment. And somebody in the meeting asked, well, when is such and such? What's the due date on that? And they said, oh, that's 9 months out. And
Right.
so it got my devious mind working and saying, what if there was something that had a really long lead time that was really critical to the grid, and somebody could take it out? And sure enough, the answers was high power transformers. And
Wow.
so I started doing the research then, and it actually took me 6 years to research and write this book. I uncovered
Wow.
oh yeah, it's the longest book I've ever written. It's the longest it ever took me to research and write a book. But I wanted to leave no stone unturned. I did not want anybody to question the validity of what I was creating in the book. And
Right.
I talked to everybody because everything is affected by electricity. You have a dairy farm. You
Yes.
cannot milk 1,200 cows by hand. You need
That's
electricity to run your milking parlor and those milking machines.
right.
In California, where the book is set, most of the farmers there are what are called dryland farmers. They rely on irrigation pumps to be able to pump water from like the Delta and so forth to be able to water their crops. It's not like in areas that get sufficient rain. I
Right.
even talked to people that worked in a mortuary.
Right.
You have refrigeration that is not going to function. You cannot, other than trying to hand embalm a person, the embalming pumps won't work. Even the retort, which is the term for the crematorium, if you will, where they
Mhm.
incinerate bodies, cremate bodies, that doesn't work. So you're
Right.
going to have dead bodies, and you can't even process those bodies.
Ooh.
Right.
Wow. Wow.
And
You know,
that's just some of the obscure things that I talk about in the book. And but there's some big ones like communication. Your cell
right.
phone is going to be nothing but a doorstop in about 2 days, if not sooner.
Right.
Most cell phone towers do not have backup generators, and the batteries in them are good for about 4 days nominal. But with everybody trying to text each other and call each other, which is what happens after any emergency, it's going to drain those batteries. So you can have no
Oh,
communication. Your modem isn't going to work in your house, so you're going to have no internet. And a lot of people have TVs that go through their computers now. Well, your TV doesn't even work because you don't have electricity for your TV. So basically, you're going to be kind of blind as to what's going on. The only option is a hand crank radio, or sit out in your car and listen to the radio in your car to find out what's going on. But here's another problem with that. Gasoline cannot be pumped in gas stations without
that's
electricity.
that's right. That's right.
You're
Well,
shaking
that's right.
your head like you've been there.
Well, well, I will say this really quickly. I was one of the well, our area was one of the areas affected by Hurricane Hugo back in
Hmm.
1987. And you find
Right.
out very quickly with an act of God that can happen, and power is cut off, how your life is affected. We were out of power for, this was so long ago, 10 to 12 days. So, you had to cook up all your food. You had to go somewhere else where people had power to take showers and all this stuff and groom your hair and all kinds of things.
Right.
We had to go on that we would never calculated. It never entered your mind
Hmm.
about what was going on, how that would affect you. And listening to you paint this picture, and it's like, even with the communication and you sitting in your car listening to the radio, how long would the studios of your TV stations and radio stations, wouldn't they run out of power eventually too?
Possibly, but most of the large radio stations are part of a network,
Okay.
and they are. I interviewed a person who was involved with radio for years and years. He was actually a security expert for radio
Okay.
stations, and radio stations, they'll take the 50,000 watt stations, the big stations everywhere. Your smaller stations, they're going to run out of power, but the
Okay.
big ones actually have pretty robust generators, fuel, and a lot of them are even nuclear hardened.
Oh,
They're
okay.
very secure facilities. You
Okay.
don't. I got interviewed once on a radio program, and I couldn't believe it was a big radio station, and I couldn't believe the security to get in there.
Wow.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. So that is one bright spot, but
Okay.
that's about your only bright spot when it comes to
Sure.
communications. And
Sure.
say
Sure.
and say you're listening to the radio and they said, okay, there is going to be a water giveaway at such and such location in some other town. How many people can read a map these days? How many people have a map these days?
Not many. Not
So now
many.
your phone doesn't work, the GPS doesn't work. You're going to be driving around burning up precious fuel.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It
So
is.
yeah, the picture you paint in dark state is very dark indeed. Not
It is.
only is it dark figurative, but it's dark literally because you have no light. So
Right.
tell us about some of the folks that's running around in dark state and what are they doing?
Well, I decided it was very tough to kind of narrow down a list of characters.
Hmm.
And because there's 40 minutes, it's set in California, the whole state is taken out by this coordinated terrorist attack. And so you have 40 million people that live in California. That's 40 million stories. Well, I can't have a book with 40 million characters. So I had to
Right.
narrow it down. So we have a single mom who's a grocery store manager.
Okay.
We have a paranoid white supremacist prepper who is
Okay.
just, he was a fun character to write because he's so paranoid. They always say bullies, bastards, and bitches are the funnest people to write in a book.
I've never heard that, but I'll keep that in mind.
but he was a lot of fun to write. At the opposite end of the spectrum, I have a self-absorbed Hollywood celebrity who now realizes his fame doesn't amount to anything in this new world.
That's
I
right.
have a homeless vet with PTSD,
Yeah.
and I have the newly appointed head of Cal OES, which is the California Office of Emergency Services,
Okay.
and she was a lot of fun to write.
Okay.
And I actually was able to get an interview, a private tour of the Cal OES facility. I had access to all of their people because
Wow.
they would be the ones who would be the tip of the spear trying to lead this recovery effort.
Right.
And but then, like I said, with like the dairy farmer and mortuary and so many other people, I thought, well, there's all these other stories, and what about them? And so
Right.
what I did is you have the 5 or 6 main characters, and then you have a bunch of vignettes, just 1 or 2 page vignettes, and it could be. I'm from California. And there was a lot of immigrants there, a lot of from Mexico, Guatemala, a lot of day laborers. Well,
Mm-hmm.
now all of a sudden they're hanging out in front of a Home Depot and these contractors, they can't work. They got
Right.
no power to power their tools. So what do these guys do? They're kind of up.
Right.
They're kind of left in the dust. Uh,
Right.
a fertility clinic. I
Right.
had I had a couple women that owned a fertility clinic, and they start losing their pre-freezers. They start not being able to get more liquid nitrogen to be able to keep the embryos, sperm, all that stuff in there. So there was just, I mean, I could have gone on and on and on with all the
Yes.
people that could have been
Yes.
affected, but those were the main ones that I had, and it was tough to nail it down. But then once I
Yeah.
did, I'm like, okay, I've got a good cross section here.
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes. And they can always run into uh, those incidents of the mortuary or all these other, things that you might want to get out to just paint that picture
right.
to the reader, so.
Hmm.
So, well, with this, I smell movie. Sounds like a movie to me.
I like your thinking. Actually, though, I'm thinking limited series.
Oh, yes, say Netflix.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything we're gonna put out into the air, and once we put this on YouTube, may it reverberate through the through the
Right,
space and reach Hollywood somehow. But
right.
yeah, it sounds very exciting, very exciting. But Dark State is not your first rodeo. You have a series, One-Eyed Jack. You're the author
Yeah.
of One-Eyed Jack, which is a crime novel series. Tell us a little bit about that. A professional blackmailer. That sounds intriguing.
Well, it is. It is. And I have a lot of fans for that series. And I'm
Mm,
constantly, people are saying, when's going to be the next One-Eyed Jack book? Because there's four of
yeah.
them out.
Okay,
And
it's
I am
4.
working on the fifth one. But One-Eyed Jack came from an idea I had for a short story. And I just, it was just something I almost wanted to just write for myself. I thought, a blackmailer is typically a secondary character in most crime novels. He's the guy who kind of comes out of the shadows and said the money
Right,
better be there or else. And
right,
I thought, what if you were to create a main character who was a blackmailer, but with the twist? He, number one, he only does blackmail. He doesn't do
murder.
selling of stolen goods or forgery or anything like that.
Right.
And he has an entire business model. And his motto is, your
Gotcha.
secrets are safe with me. And
Uh,
so what he does is he finds your secret, he documents it, he makes anonymous contact with you, and he sets up an easy monthly payment plan for you to keep the secret safe. Whole
wow.
whole business model. But he
Wow.
has a heart. And so he never blackmails anybody who basically doesn't deserve it. And
God.
he typically comes to the rescue by using his blackmailing skills of others that he feels are being, unjustly treated. So,
Right,
but he's not a Robin Hood. I didn't want to go down the whole path of, Robin Hood stealing from the rich, giving to the poor, and so forth. He
right.
does do some pro bono work for people he really feels like, they could use a helping hand. But he's
Right.
a lot of fun, and it all started when I wrote this short story. And like most writers, I fell in love with my character. I fell in love with the concept, and I thought, wow, this might make a good novel. So I wrote the
Mhm.
novel, and it was a Shamus Award finalist. First novel I
Yes.
ever wrote, and it was a Shamus Award finalist. It was also a Writer's Digest honorable mention for genre fiction. And I
Mhm.
thought, I think I got a little hit here. So I started writing more of them. And,
Yes.
and then One-Eyed Jack led to me writing the Eddie Haskell biography.
Yes, and I was getting ready to segue to that. Ken Osmond, who we all know, lovingly or not, as Eddie Haskell on the hit show from the 1950s that still plays today, Leave It to Beaver.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's such a
So
good show. You
Yeah.
know,
So,
you just had to. Eddie Haskell was irritating.
oh, yep, yep. He,
Never get Wally to wise up to Eddie. And you know, and the mother was trying to tell them.
oh yeah,
But
yeah.
but the picture you but Eddie Haskell, like many actors, that's not necessarily who they are, of course, in real life. But so how did you come to meet Ken Osmond, and what inspired you to write his story?
Well, I was on Yahoo one day, and they would, I don't know if they still have it, but it'll say trending now, and it
Mm-hmm.
said trending now. Frank Bank dies.
Mm,
I don't know who that is.
right.
And then the next day, it said under trending now, it said Frank, and then in parentheses, it said Lumpy and Banks died.
Oh
And
my.
so I clicked on it, and it turns out that the gentleman named Frank Bank, who played Lumpy on the show, he
Yes.
had just passed away. And here's a little bit of trivia for you.
Oh.
He passed away on Tony Dow's birthday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So
Oh, man.
Frank Banks passed on, and I noticed that the story trended for 3 days on Yahoo, and I thought, wow, there's still a lot of interest in this show. And I
Yes.
thought, I wonder if he wrote a biography. So I checked, and Frank Bank had written a biography, and I thought, well, what about the other characters? So I dug deeper, and I found out Jerry Mathers had written one, but Ken Osmond had not written one.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I found out where Ken lived, and I wrote a pitch letter, and I included a copy of my book, One Eyed Jack.
Okay.
And I sent it off to him. And I like to say that writers, we shoot a lot of arrows into the air,
Yeah.
sending a book out here, there, everywhere. And you never know if you're going to hit anything. And
Right.
so I send it out. I promptly forgot about it, just went on with my life. And then a month and a half later, I get a call from Ken Osmond, and he says, "Hey, Chris," he said, "this is Ken Osmond. I'm really loving your book, One Eye Jack. And yeah, why don't we get together and have a beer and talk about you writing my life story?" And so
Wow.
I like to tell people at that point, I was ecstatic, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm drinking with Eddie Haskell. And we
Definitely.
did.
You made it.
And so I met him. I actually helped him before we even got started on his biography. I met him and helped. He's a huge military supporter, and people don't realize Ken was actually in the military while he was on the
Oh,
show.
wow.
Yeah, he
Okay.
was in the Army Reserves. And if you look at the last season, last two seasons of the show, you notice
Mhm.
Ken's hair is really short, and they would try
Oh,
to style it to make it look like it was a lot, more hair than he had. But that
right.
was because he was up at Fort Ord, California, in the Army Reserves.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
There
I'll
was
be
a
looking out for that.
Yeah, and there was a lot of things about Ken's life that were just so incredible. And people, as soon as the book came out and it was selling, still sells really well.
Mhm.
People asked me, they said, "So are you going to start writing celebrity biographies now?" And I said,
Mm.
"Well, first of all, you can't swing a dead cat in LA without hitting somebody who was an actor at some point, practically." And so
Wait
I
a
said,
minute. Wait. Hold on. Let's go back to swinging around a dead cat.
"You never heard that expression?"
No.
Yeah, you can't swing a dead cat in LA without hitting somebody who was an actor on some program, especially a kid actor.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
and so my response was, I said, "Well, they better have a very interesting story, because Ken Osmond had an incredible life
Mm.
because of Eddie Haskell, and in spite of Eddie Haskell, he had an incredible life. The times
Yes.
he cheated death, uh,
Ooh.
Oh yeah, he was shot at point blank range
Oh my gosh.
in a doorway. He was LAPD officer for years and years because he
Hmm.
couldn't get any work because he was typecast. So he
Yeah.
was shot at point blank range
Mm.
in a doorway, and he was wearing body armor, and two of the bullets hit him in what's considered non-lethal areas. But the
Mm-hmm.
last bullet was right at his gut at about the waist point, right by his waistband. What saved his life was his belt buckle.
Oh wow.
The bullet hit the
Wow.
belt buckle, and there's a picture of the belt buckle. He kept it as a souvenir. It's bent in. You can
Oh,
see the rifling grooves from the 38 slug in that belt buckle.
oh my gosh. Oh
So
wow.
he cheated death there. He and his brother had a helicopter company, a charter. They ended up crashing in a busy intersection. Ken
Oh no.
was, yeah, they walked away from it. That guy
Oh,
has, Ken Osmond has the most incredible life, and he's about the most humble person I think I've ever met,
wow.
which both
Wow.
Tony Dow and Jerry Mathers both have said Ken was the best actor on the program, bar none, because he was nothing like his character.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow, I'll have to take a look at some of those Leave It to Beaver episodes and think about that, definitely. That's good to hear. That's good to hear because he was he really acted his butt off on that show.
oh, he did. He
So
did.
now he is now passed, correct?
Correct. And so has
Mhm.
Tony Dow.
Yes, 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 yes. And so all
So
we have left is Jerry Mathers, I guess.
that's correct. Yeah.
Wow, man, oh man, what a great show. Well, Christopher, you have so much going on, and I think there's something for anyone who loves to read nonfiction, biographies, mysteries and thrillers, and intrigue with our blackmailer, One-Eyed Jack. You got a lot of variety for people to take a look at your work. And so, with that said, we'll have all of your information in the podcast show notes, as well as the YouTube description box below the video.
Excellent. Thank you so
Yes,
much.
yes, yes. I really enjoyed it. And so, swinging the dead cat. And what was that about? Bitches, who's and who?
Oh,
Bitch.
yeah. So the character that I wrote that was the paranoid prepper, and I said
Yeah.
those kind of characters are always fun to write. And where that expression came from, bitches, bastards, and bullies,
Yes.
there's a woman who wrote a book for writers about writing bad, like despicable characters. And the title of the book is Bitches, Bastards, and Bullies.
I love it. I love You learn so much from doing these podcasts.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, Christopher Lynch, thank you so much for joining me today, and I can't wait to get a hold of one of your books.
Okay. I do have one plug if I could. If you
Go
have
ahead.
any listeners out in the Los Angeles area,
Oh,
uh, I am going to be in a documentary film premiering at the Chinese Theater on July
oh,
2nd. I was a mountain climber, and years ago, I came up with this idea of training and leading blind hikers, which they weren't even hikers, they were just ordinary people.
right,
They were visually impaired to the summit of Mount Baldy, which is the highest point in Los Angeles County and one of the most dangerous mountains.
right.
So we were successful, and a documentary film was filmed of it, and it will be premiering at the Chinese Theater on July 2nd. And
Ooh,
I can send you a link for the
yes,
tickets if you have anybody in the LA
yes,
area. I got
yes.
to I'm in the film because I organized the hike and so forth, but it's really about the blind hikers and their stories. And
Oh,
uh,
wow.
I got a sneak preview of the film and showed it to my wife, and we had some other guests. I was able to do that, And my wife was in tears. It's
Oh,
just so
wow.
emotional. These blind people never thought in their wildest dreams that they would climb the highest mountain in LA.
Yes,
And
or any mountain for that matter,
right.
you
And
know?
now they are going to get to realize another dream they never expected, and that is to walk on the red carpet at the Chinese theater.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Well, I have not been to the theater itself, but I've been around the theater
Uh-huh.
on that Hollywood block there.
Right.
My son lives in LA now. And so, yeah, we go to that shopping mall like right above it all the time. Every time I'm in LA, I swing by there. But
Okay.
yes, that's a big deal. It's a big deal. It's still a big deal like it was a long time ago.
Right. Right.
Most definitely.
So
And what's the name of the documentary?
it's called Baldy for the Blind.
And that's just like Baldy, like it was hair.
Right. Baldy for the blind. And I'll send you a link.
Yes,
People can watch the trailer to the movie, and then they can
yes.
purchase tickets. And even if they are, and it's a fully captioned film, so if they're audible, hearing impaired, it's fully captioned. We're going to do a question and answer after the film. There'll be a
Mhm.
sign language interpreter up there.
Oh,
Also,
wonderful.
for visually impaired viewers, they have these devices where you actually have narration for the blind individuals to understand what's going on the screen, not just hearing
Oh,
the people. So
yes.
there's a limited number of those. So I would say
Okay.
if somebody's visually impaired, they need to jump on it and reserve one of them for themselves. So yeah,
Right,
it's going
right.
to be a lot of fun. A lot of the blind hikers are going to be there. A lot of the people that were sight guides that helped me are going to be there, and I'm going to be there. The producer director is going to be there. It's going to be quite an event. And
Okay.
yeah, I'm
Sounds
inviting
wonderful.
everybody who wants to come to just show up there, buy a ticket and show up, and it'll be a guarantee. I'll tell you what, I'll make a guarantee. If they don't like the movie, I will give them their money back. How's that?
Oh, I highly doubt that. It sounds amazing. It sounds amazing.
Yeah,
Wow. Well, Christopher, wow, like I said, you're a man of many different faces, I see. But so thank you for that information and thank you for joining me today.
sure thing. All right. You take care. All right.
Thank you.